Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Patricia Love, and Patricia is returning to the Success Insight podcast to continue our conversation that is based on her soon-to-be published book. In fact, even by the time this podcast is published, we hopefully expect that book to be available wherever fine books are sold. Now, let me give you a little background about Patricia. She is a women's empowerment coach and practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and emotional freedom technique. She is the author, and this is why we're continuing our conversation with Patricia, of the book Seen and Unheard, A Little Girl's Journey from Silence to Empowerment. In Seen and Unheard, Patricia courageously shares how she successfully navigated a life of mental abandonment, abuse, and trauma, and ultimately found her power and worth within in order to create a new story. Patricia, it's a pleasure to have you back on the Success Insight podcast and to continue this very valuable discussion.
Hey, Howard, thank you so much. I am just thrilled to be back. Thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. So what is the focus of our conversation today?
Well, that's a good question. I want to address a particular word. In the past, when I tell people I'm a word person, and not grammatically words, I love words. And in fact, we talked about in our last episode, and if your listeners listened to it, 5 of my key words, I call them my 5 diamonds. And these particular 5 words are really, really important, but they are just, I like to call them the diamonds in the rough, because when you shine them up and they become more brilliant and shiny, that's when we start to grow. But to grow and to really be the person that we really want to be, we have to become aware. So when I say that, that first word, acknowledgement, which happens to be one of my first diamonds of my diamond words, is acknowledgement. But awareness is part of that acknowledgement, acknowledging the fact that maybe you're not as aware as you should be. Awareness plays a big, big part in the personal growth area.
In the word awareness, from a coaching vantage point, we have self-awareness. So the individual, you, me, anyone else, we're self-aware of how we are showing up. And we also have, for the sake of better words, the social awareness, aware of what is outside of us. So it's kind of like turning the lens outward. When you talk about self-awareness as really the grounding of these diamonds, what kind of awareness are you speaking about?
Both, believe it or not.
Okay.
It's really important to be self-aware, and that's the internal part of us. But it's also important to be externally aware of what others do and what others' thoughts and what they are saying and your surroundings and different things. It's an additive to your self-awareness. And pretty soon it all becomes one. Because when you become more self-aware on the internal, you're going to become more aware on the external. Because awareness is part of personal development, right? Through personal development and growth is usually when we can improve our relationships, which of course, if you're internally self-aware, then externally that becomes better, right? Relationships, and also our careers get better, our wealth or abundance, our health, our happiness, because basically the fundamental core of growth is the pursuit of self-awareness, you might say. You need to have both, but we have to start someplace. And I always tell my clients that it's really important to keep things simple. Because people get extremely overwhelmed with like, oh my gosh, I have to be self-aware my whole life. And, what's going on here? And in reality, keeping it simple is the best way for growth. And the bottom line is a lot of us do is start with grounding. And I mean, you ground, Howard. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but when you go, into and look outside and look up into the stars, that's a grounding for you.
Sure.
It's getting out into nature. Nature actually grounds us also. But self-awareness does start within, and then it also then goes external too.
Okay. It's funny you mentioned about going out to the stars, and I think in nature, because just quieting ourselves down, and it can be very hard to do, but it is such a powerful practice to become adept at, to slow our minds down and really to just be in the moment, whether it's watching the sunrise with a cup of tea or coffee, going out amongst the stars, or you're up in the Northwest on a beautiful boat in a beautiful harbor, and you can hear the ringing of the halyards on the massive sailboats, which, by the way, is one of my most favorite sounds in the whole world. But as you work with your clients, what are some of the techniques that you are working with them on to really tap into their ability to become more aware, whether it's internal or external?
It's really simple. And you actually hit on it a little bit just a minute ago, and it is stopping. It's pausing to just be. And that can be for 30 seconds. It could be for 20 minutes, but it's really taking an action and pausing to just either take a walk, maybe so that there's nothing in your mind, no music, no anything. You're just being. When you pause, you're beginning to ground yourself, is what they say. So people talk about, oh, I'm grounding myself. You're actually grounding yourself within. And when you pause, you are stopping all of the chatter. And that's what we want to do, is begin to quiet the mind. The biggest problem that most people have is quieting their mind down, because without quieting your mind down, you have no clarity. When you can clear your mind, you will have a much better vision. Because when you're not focused, as we all know, when we're scattered, we can't think, right? When you're like got a million things going on, it's like, oh my God, what I got to do this, I got to do this. And then sometimes you forget to do things, and that's why these days everybody has to write things down, because they forget things,
Right.
Because they're not pausing to be clear. You actually could remember a lot of things if you would stop and pause a few times a day and start to learn to be grounded and be willing to take that 20 seconds or that 20 minutes, whatever is good for you, because the more you do it, the more you like it. So, Howard, I would put you on the spot here a little bit.
Sure.
The more you go out and you are in nature and you are looking at the stars or looking through your telescope and there's nobody around, you begin to want to do it, not just on the weekends, right? You want to do it every day if you could.
Every day, but I can do one better than that, is just to walk outside your door and go for a walk around the block.
Yes, that's simple. That keeps it very simple.
Yeah, and it's very doable.
And it's so funny you say that, because what I do, like I'm on a boat and sometimes I'm with clients, I'm coaching clients on Zoom all day long. And I can easily, once everything is done, just, close up the computer and, pour myself a glass of wine. But what I do is I purposely made a decision intentionally to take the garbage up every night, because what that does is it gets me out walking on the dock. And once I actually dispose of the garbage, I actually continue walking a little bit, because
Sure.
It feels good. Once you get out there, I don't take my phone. I don't take anything. I just take my keys, make sure I get back in. Okay.
Right.
But, honestly, it's when I then start to ground myself from the day, because that's why a lot of people have insomnia. They can't sleep because they have troubles making their mind quiet and having the chatter go away. So it's really important. Pausing is the key of self-awareness and being aware. And when you become more aware of what you're doing and what you're feeling, everything will begin to improve. And it doesn't have to be a 20-minute meditation. It just means to stop or just pause for a few minutes to gather your senses. You know how when we get kind of crazy and sometimes we go, wait a minute, just stop.
Right.
And some of us do that and realize that, wow, my brain is going like crazy. When we start to realize our brain is going crazy, that's when we start stopping, and then we're going to want to do more of it. It's just like anything else, is when it feels good, you want to do more of that.
It's a wonderful feeling just to consciously choose to stop what you're doing, to check out of the internet and the PC and the cell phone, and just to be aware of your surroundings, where you're at. And you know what really it's kind of interesting we're having this discussion today on self-awareness because with your background in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there's also opportunity there to, after you have slowed yourself down, you have kind of turned off all the external stimulus, but then that gives you an opportunity to think about what do you want next and make that then a part of your routine as well. So it's interesting.
Yes, that's when things become clearer.
Yeah.
When you pause and at first, I find it funny. I'm just talking to somebody about this today. At first, it may feel very awkward to stop and pause. In fact, sometimes you get anxious, you fidget, you do all these things.
Yeah.
But if you force yourself to do it for like 2 minutes, and then, that wasn't quite so bad. It will become more natural. It's like anything else. It's like, that's why it's probably even a better idea to take a walk. That actually forces you to pause.
Right.
Or, because it's, a lot of people can't maybe go outside. So I try to tell them if they got little children to go into the bathroom and something and just stop and close the door and pause a little bit. But of course, if you can get into nature itself is a grounding energy. It automatically grounds you. What we're trying to do is take that scrambled energy that you've been utilizing all day and it's been out there and crazy and other people's energy have been coming at you all day long, is what you need to stop and just chill out for a few minutes. Once you start learning to do that every single day, your focus is going to be clearer. And so then your mind will become clear. And then all of that mindset, those thoughts, those thinking thoughts and behaviors will become more attuned. And this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to tune in to you. That's what self-awareness is tuning in to who you are, tuning into yourself and be willing. And you use this word, I've said in other podcasts, is the word choose. You choose to take a walk. You need to be able to choose to stop and to pause and to take that time so that you can become aware so that then you can be clear in what your path might be. Because right now, everybody's on a hamster wheel. And in order to even start anything, you have to stop.
True. I'm thinking this is a great challenge for our listeners, for individuals who pick up a copy of your book, Seen and Unheard, is to ask themselves, what can you do today to pause? Start with a minute, decide how you want to spend that minute, whether it's the restroom, like you said, or you walk outside and just, walk around your building or the circumference of your yard or the block. I'm going to go out to the desert this weekend, but I think it's a good challenge.
But yeah, and just take a notice of what's out there. And even walk a different direction. If you do a regular walk another direction.
Right. I love it.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think that if people could just, again, like I just said, and able to get started, they just need to stop.
Fantastic. Now, before we head out for this episode, anything else that we want to share with our listeners about self-awareness and this particular topic?
Yeah. I want the listeners to understand that self-awareness is not something freaky or something weird. In fact, self-awareness is how you grow. And as humans, we need to continually grow in life, or we just stop, we just die. Because without growth, we're nothing, without change, because there's constant change in the world, right? So we want to continually to grow. So the thing I want to leave with them today is be willing, be open, choose to be teachable, choose to be open-minded and try it. That's the main thing, is just give it a try, because you're going to be surprised how much more focus you're going to have when you start doing it.
I love it. That's fantastic. Patricia, I know we're going to come back for episode number 5, but in this particular episode, as in all episodes, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
The best place is patricialove.com, because you can contact me there, or also on Facebook if you prefer that, which is Patricia Love, the Rah Coach, and then also on Instagram, Coach Patricia Love. So pretty easy to find. You can pretty much Google me also.
Fantastic. Well, we'll definitely have the backlinks to the website, patricialove.com, and your social sites. Once again, Patricia, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us on the Success Insight podcast. And then I'm personally very grateful that you are joining us here on this journey and helping our listeners on this journey of discovery and their own self-awareness, and really kind of using your particular journey as perhaps a platform so that others are feeling like they can make change in their lives as well. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Patricia Love. She's a women's empowerment coach and the author of Seen and Unheard, A Little Girl's Journey from Silence to Empowerment. And we're going to have Patricia back on future episodes. And really, I think it's just a wonderful way to share with the listening community, kind of using Patricia's own story to kind of and dissect that journey that she was on and use it as a path for others to make the changes in their life, to be seen and heard in their lives. Really some great nuggets of insight today, which in particular is self-awareness. If you would like, please visit us on our website, successinsightpodcast.com. We would love to hear comments and feedback about this episode or any episode for that matter. You can find us on Facebook and on LinkedIn, the Success Insight Podcast pages. We are also on the major podcasting platforms, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Spotify, as well as on YouTube. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, practice social distancing, continue to wear your mask, take care of yourselves and your family, and we will see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.